Good morning on a cold, wet day in October 2023, and I'm sat here sort of just contemplating things, and I've had an email that's telling me about a few happenings in and around our area, and I just got a map up to look where this location was, in relation to everything else. But he's telling me about something that happened around that area. And when you look at the map, and I've got a map in front of me now, and you've got Grindale, you've got Burton, Fleming, Wold Newton, Foxholes, Butterwick, Weaverthorpe, Helperthorpe, East Lutton, West Lutton, and in between Dougleby, you've got Kirby Grindaleth or Kirby Grindale. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. And you've got Warren Percy, which is the medieval village. So further on, you've got Langtoft. So it's fascinating that all of these locations are locations where things have happened in the past. And you're not far from Sledmere. It's bang in the middle of Sledmere, and then you go to Flixton. There's roads run parallel either side of this location. You've got Wycombe, you've got lots and lots of locations where strange things have happened. So let's start at Grindale. And I think it was back in 1970s that a witness told me he'd been poaching, and whilst out in the fields, seasoned man of the woods and fields, we don't have to sort of fix on the poaching aspect of it. He knew the area very well. But on one particular day, he's looking at his snares. He did comment that things had been taken out of his snares on many occasions. Something, in his words, something had been ragging these unfortunate animals out of his snares, and something jumped over a hedge. Some large creature jumped over the hedge, he said, and it stuck like it was sticking on Velcro. He said, and it looked at him and his friend and then carried on running across the fields. Now, this man, in between the 1970s and now, still walks these fields, still stays around this area, has never seen it before or since. So that's Grindale. We'll move on to Burton Fleming. UFO reports around Burton Fleming. And bearing in mind, we're only sticking to the roads and the places local to the roads here, but location is key. We are following this path. And when I say path, I don't mean like we're walking it. But Burton Fleming, very close. We've got the burial mound of Willie Howe, where the pilot saw the sphere of orange light close to the mound as he's flying and lost track of time. And then we've got the burial mound itself, which is sort of synonymous with strange happenings and strange events that go back further than the 12th century. I mean, the burial mound is Neolithic, and Canon Greenwell, who excavated the burial mound in the 1800s, and he excavated many burial mounds in and around the area, said he'd never excavated a mound with such a strange atmosphere, which is an odd thing to say, and he documented that because he wasn't a man who was looking into the unexplained. He was basically looking for the artifacts that have been found in and around burial mounds. So we've got Willie Howe, we've got the little people of Willie Howe, and the stories attached to it. We've got the pilot's encounter. Then we come to Wold Newton. Once again, strange happenings in and around that area. And then in between Wold Newton and Butterwick, we've got Foxholes. So I just told you on the Grindle Road about the man who came across this creature that jumped over the hedge. Probably 2 miles down the road at Foxholes, and I think we're jumping back to 2018, a man driving home late at night encounters a creature on all fours that he describes as looking like a werewolf running along the side of his car. I've documented it. I think it's in Truth Proof too. So we've got a pattern going here, not just a pattern of bipedal creatures or creatures resembling something akin to a werewolf on four legs, but a pattern of unexplained phenomena, UFOs, spheres of light, all within a few miles. But then we go to Butterwick, and I'm not sure, I have spoke about it, I think, but myself and Steve Ashbridge, we used to drive from Bridlington, and we used to pull in at the junction where you would turn down to Butterwick, and we would observe spheres of light. And I don't mean every time, but that was a place that we would sit and observe. And I think we did that from about 2005 to 2009. Various places. We'd go to Cotton sometimes, or other times we would go to Sledmere. But the bulk of the time we would be looking at Butterwick and that junction, and we would see strange spheres of light, not just in the sky. My daughter Jessica saw a blue sphere of light travelling along the corn, looking onto the fields. Steve Ashbridge went running into the fields, not across the crop, I might add, but he went running into the fields because we'd seen almost translucent, almost gossamer, opaque lights that you could see in the trees. We could both see them. We weren't imagining it. They were like bubbles. This is in the dead of night on the road that runs between Octon and Sledmere, but we'd just pulled off that road onto the road that runs to Butterwick. So we've got this pattern here of location is key, and we're working slowly down it. And then we come to Weaverthorpe. Weaverthorpe's a fascinating place, and I talk about the cliff tops of Bempton and Speeton and Buckton, and then we go further up the coast as having a sort of wealth of unexplained phenomena. But this road, or the land either side of this road, is just as interesting. Weaverthorpe. Residents of Weaverthorpe, and it's a tiny village, have contacted me independently to say they've seen orange spheres of light. Young boys who are now adults playing on the open green at Weaverthorpe talk about seeing UFOs, talk about seeing black triangles, all things that have been reported to me from this area over a period of years and years and years. Weaverthorpe, Helperthorpe, UFO activity at Helperthorpe, which is the next village on. Then we go to Kirby Grindaleth. Sure, I'm pronouncing that one wrong. And then just after that, we've got Duggleby. And I've got a couple of friends who live very close who've seen UFOs. They described it as a typical flying saucer, silver flying saucer above Duggleby How, as well as, to just step back a bit here, people, Duggleby How is a burial mound running in line with Willie Howe. So, line through to Willie Howe, the burial mound, runs through Grindale, runs on towards Bempton. There's this line going through. So we've got UFO activity all the way along that road. We've got cryptid type activity all the way along that road. We've also got I don't know whether it's the playful nature of these lights or whether it's something else, but we've also got the activity of the spheres of white light that drivers report whilst driving at night on these roads or that road. And it can be any location along that road. I've had reports of people thinking there's a motorbike behind them, and the bike's got very close to them, then gone up and over the top of the car. One night back in probably 2007, 2009, I was up on the Wolds on my own, and I was driving back from Octon towards Bridlington, which is all relevant to what we're talking about. And I thought there was a motorbike behind me, just a single white light, not throwing out a beam. And it was a good distance behind me, but it just kept trailing me. In the end, I stopped. I wanted to see this vehicle pass me. It never did. So I don't know. I think I probably encountered the same strange phenomena there. Well, numerous reports of white lights following cars and then going over the top of cars or just petering out and disappearing. So, we've got all of those reports or genre of unexplained phenomena reported from Grindale all the way to Duggleby, and I'm sure it continues. But if we go north a little, the road that parallels from Filey, Muston, I'm still looking at this map, people, Flixton, Staxton, Everybody's familiar with these areas if they're familiar with what I look into, if they're familiar with my work. All report. Ganton, Sherburn, all have reports of a similar nature. We're all familiar with the reports of the Flixton werewolf. Well, in between Wold-Newton and Flixton, you've got Fordon. And Fordon, a tiny village, has got big cat reports, UFO reports, reports of what somebody gave me all the information that when they were doing some security around farms and buildings, that they'd seen something on two legs with fangs. I'm not talking about venomous snake fangs, but it had two large canines, and they saw this thing. And I'm not sure which book I wrote it about this one in. I think it was book 3, and I think we called it the Fordon Fangman. I know, a strange thing to call something, but if we jump to what we called the car chaser at Foxholes, which is literally a mile away from Fordon as the crow flies, the man remarked that this thing that was pacing his car had two huge canines hanging down as big as his thumbs. That's fascinating, isn't it? So you've got Flixton. So if we go north, as I've said before, we've got Muston. And Muston, there used to be a stone at Muston called the Moonstone, long since gone. So they believe that Muston originally was called Moonstone. In between Muston and Burton Fleming, we've got Hunmanby, farmstead of the Houndman. Everything's there in the place names that not only connects the unexplained activity by location, but by name in some instances. And in between Muston, Hunmanby, Burton Fleming, in a line, we've got the Rudston monolith. And then obviously we're coming the other side of Burton Fleming. We're just coming down a little bit. We're going south. And if we stay at Boynton, lots and lots of UFO activity at Boynton. From Boynton, you'd go to Ruston. Then we'd go to Thwing. We've got the largest meteorite that ever hit Britain. I think that's been found. It's in the British Museum. There's bigger ones being found now. I think it was found in the 1800s. Somebody might correct me here, but I'm not reading from information. I'm doing it from inside here. And it was called the Thwing meteorite, and it weighed 56 pounds and landed in a field whilst some farm worker was working the field. Can you imagine that hitting you on noggin? That would have been a shock. Well, he wouldn't have been there to tell the tale, would they? And in Thwing, we have a man called John of Thwing, who later became Saint John of Bridlington, attributed to miracles in his lifetime. But all of these things in this fabulous area, and the roads run parallel with, obviously, as I said earlier, Grindale, Burton Fleming, Wold-Newton, Foxholes, Butterwick, Weaverthorpe, Helperthorpe, all running between Flixton, and lower down you'd got Boynton, where we've just had lots and lots of UFO activity. Boynton Woods, a farm worker, claimed that she'd seen a Bigfoot, and not willing really to talk in any great detail about it to me, but I know that that's what they claimed they'd seen. Up in the woods at Boynton, numerous sightings of big black cats. And then like we've said, we've got the Rudston monolith, the tallest standing stone in the United Kingdom. Thwing, Octon, and then we go on and on to Cowlem Crossroads. It's a place that we've spent many, many years looking for the unexplained life form phenomena. Cottam and Langtoft in between there, and farmers have reported UFO activity at Cottam and Langtoft over decades and decades. And this is the place at Cottam where myself and Steve Ashbridge spent years and years observing. And, one particular farmer there told me that as a younger man, I think we're going back to the 1990s, he followed a UFO. He pointed it out. He said, "The wood back there is my wood." He said, "Now, one night when we drew into the farmyard," this is a long story, so I'm going to really tighten it up because there were a little bit more before. He said, I think he said his daughter and son-in-law, or then boyfriend, but now son-in-law, were in the farmyard waiting for them. and there's a huge object above them, low in the sky. Loads of lights all the way around it, totally silent. And it set off moving, and he pointed to the wood. He said, it was moving just above the trees in my wood. Well, I could see the wood. This is not a forest. These trees were no more than 30 to 40 foot high when I looked at them. And we were doing this in 2007-ish, maybe a bit earlier. This story went back to the 1990s, and he followed it as it went above the treetops. He said it made a sound just like a breeze as it moved along the treetops, and his wife shouting at him to come back. When it got to the edge of the wood, this object turned and went back in the same direction, and he followed it that way. Then he said it just followed the contours of the land and went towards Langtoft. An old story, but still very valid when you consider all of the activity that's taking place around this area. And I touched on Langtoft, and we've got lots and lots of UFO activity reported around Langtoft. And I know that the farmers around these locations have even more. And, you know, some may even be watching this. And if you are, and you want anonymity, you're guaranteed that, contact me. Well, before I leave it, I mean, it would have been so easy to have just said, you know, we've covered Cowlam and the Cowlam Crossroads, but we come to Sledmere, and Sledmere's got a wealth of UFO activity. You know, it was in Sledmere, driving through the village back in 2004, that myself and a guy called Chris stopped our van to watch a huge tubular-shaped UFO, white pulsing UFO that looked, for all intents and purposes, like a breadstick, just above some trees. About 10 past 4 in afternoon, bright sunny day. We're out of the van looking at it. I've shorties at the side of me saying, is it one of them UFO thingies? His exact words. I just kept stressing to him that he must talk about it tomorrow. Don't pretend you haven't seen it. It didn't fly away. It switched off. But sure enough, the next day he talked about it. Then over a period of days and weeks, his enthusiasm to talk about it dissipated to, well, we might have seen something. What mechanisms are at work in people's minds that make them do that? I really don't know. Towthorpe, I was just about to close this down, but a metal detector at Towthorpe with I think he told me, it's a long time since I got this story, he had a Caucasian shepherd, big Alsatian type dog. I think his analogy was it's like an Alsatian on steroids. It's a huge dog, pretty fearless, he said. I think he said they use them for guard dogs in prisons in other countries. And he encountered a bipedal beast, creature, so he says, paralleling him at Towthorpe when he's in a field illegally metal detecting one night. So it's kind of fascinating that all of these locations, location is key, all of these locations run parallel with one another. You know, Cowlam through to Boynton, that's the lower down section. Then we've got Sherburn, Flixton, that's the upper section, and bang in the middle we've got Duggleby through to Grindale. But all of that land is sparsely populated in between these roads. I wonder what's happening off-road, because there's so much activity being reported over the years, and they all run to the coast. You know, when you look at Staxton, Flixton, Muston, it all runs towards Filey. You know, we could go higher up, and then we're heading towards Wycombe, and we're heading towards the forests, and we head towards Scalby Mills, where a lot of the activity that started for Wolflands, our documentary, began. So we've got a pattern. Location is key, but it's not just one concentrated jewel of unexplained phenomena. It's vast. It's fabulous, you know, and I'm keen to stress that this phenomena is accessible for everybody if you're willing to take the time and get into the locations and sit and observe. Last night, myself, Peter and Alex were on the cliff tops till late. miserable, thankless night, nothing to see. No doubt we'll do it again 2 or 3 times this week, and probably once at the weekend. You know, it's pointless walking about with a camera just to put on social media. We're at Bempton again. I could do 20 of them in one night, and that'll cover me, and just lie. But there's no need. We're there, boots on the ground, trying to observe, and not just observe so we can show you guys. Observe because it's such an amazing thing to see when something truly unexplainable occurs. And then you hear the other people say, well, where are the aliens? Where are the UFOs? We're not seeing them. I'm sorry, people, but we've gone months and months without seeing anything unusual. And then when we do see it, we're the only ones that have been privy to seeing it. You know, looking from Staxton Wold, myself, a member of the UFO Society, the Yorkshire UFO Society, and Steve Ashbridge. So a huge turquoise light just emanate up from the ground, but it covered miles. It was huge, just for a split second. I saw it first, explained to Joe and Steve what I'd seen, instead of putting the camera in that direction. If I'd have put the camera in that direction, I'd have caught it the second time. Don't think it was something otherworldly. I think it was some earthbound phenomena. There was almost like electric in it. It came up like a mushroom. But is that no more fascinating than seeing a true UFO, for want of a better word, a true unexplained object? I find even if it's earthbound phenomena, I find it just as fascinating. But where am I going with this? The point I'm getting at is it covered miles. We thought it were going to be reported in papers next day. We felt certain other people must have seen it. Nobody said a word. So where are the aliens? Where are the UFOs? We're not seeing them. I haven't got an answer to that. All I know is that if you've seen this phenomena, if you've seen the objects, if you've seen the occupants of the objects, no amount of scientific data saying that they can't possibly get to us or it's just an impossibility is going to convince that person otherwise. And no amount of explaining from that person and receiving the scientific jargon to explain the sighting away is going to convince me or the people that have seen and experienced. It's gone in all directions, this, people, and I'm sorry about that. And paperback books behind me, truthproof.uk. If you do want to read the books, they can be obtained through the website. Our documentary Wolflands is still riding high in the Amazon Top 100. It's holding its own amongst high budget films. So on that note, I shall say goodbye, and I'll be joining you very soon. Don't forget, if you're watching this, to like and subscribe, assuming you like what we're doing. Goodbye. Thank you.